Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurasha binti Mustafa and my metric number is 0558887. Okay, for this presentation, I will explain about the introduction. So the first thing that I will explain is about the credit assessment. A credit assessment is the opinion of a particular credit agency about the ability and willingness of an entity like the government, business, or individual to meet its financial obligation in full and within a specific time. Credit assessment also show the probability that the debtor will be default and indicated the credit risk. So, the meaning of credit risk is loss that may occur as a result of one party's failure to comply with the terms and the condition of a financial contract, which is primarily borne by debt instrument, sorry for the interruption, or whether the loans or bond issuances.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nofar Akmalia binti Zainuddin. My metric is 056467. I will continue the introduction. Regarding this credit risk, there is a lot of misconduct or lack of ethics and moral of the market practice in the financial sector, such as unrealistic and risky mortgage lending to the poor. Part of this error is due to the ideology of neoliberalism. The idea is to liberate the market and develop the economy. Basically, it is designed for the government and private sector activities. Taxes are abolished and the market is deregulated. This idea has been successfully carried out like Francis Fukuyama and Thomas L. Friedman. But what is regrettable from their increasing success is this institution require that every country wishing to obtain lending facility must first agree on the implementation of neoliberal economic policies that include fiscal policy reforms, market determining interest rates, free trade, and others. So the consequences of major economic exposure to short-term attacks are increasing instability and a series of financial crises in the country. Often, economic crisis will continue with political crisis, and all this increase the increasing number of employed, marginalization of the workforce, and the use of violation of basic labor rights.
Literature review. When a decision conflicts with a society basic values, ethical questions arise. Individual and company alike may be embroiled in this controversy, as all of their action may be questioned on ethical ground. Individual and organization alike are affected by this topic through their interaction with one another with organization. Ethical considerations are impossible to contend with since there are no definite rules or precedents.
Next, we will go to the background of the issue. Number 1, human behavior. Human morality is essentially a natural phenomenon that evolved to limit excessive individualism and foster human cooperation, despite its sophistication and complexity in comparison to other animals. Number 2, from ancient Greece to the 21st century, the responses to questions about how a diverse, pluralistic society can deal with the pressure of internal difference and rivalry have to place civility at their core, because nothing else, definitely not the blunt instrument of the law, can do almost as well. Lastly is methodology. This method gives rise to standards of behavior and conduct that help people live in a more monitored and orderly manners. That's all from me. Thank you.
Alright, we move to the next slide, which is research method. Actually, in this method, it's about how we collect and analyze data in order to prove evidence to support a conclusion. Actually, in this method, we have 4 processes that we have used in this research. Start with research strategy. With research strategy, we have gathered information that related with moral and ethical issue that happen in the credit assessment. The second process is a secondary source. In this process, we have analyzed the data available in various forms, such as existing studies through internet to obtain the desired information. Third process is about a research process. Actually, in this process, we have downloaded, we have read several articles, existing research, and file document through internet source, so that we have identified and find out the issues in the credit assessment that always happen in the all financial institution. Lastly, it's about research analysis. Actually, this is a process of collecting, examining, understanding, and presenting it to those who are more easily understood by others. In other words, like we draw conclusion and extract knowledge based on the reference source collected for the purpose of a given study.
Finding moral and ethical issue in credit assessment profession. First, inefficient data management. Management in finance as well as in credit assessment procedure is very important because it is a good way to understand the adequacy of capital saving in order to reduce any loss that will occur. But in this management process, there is often an issue in credit assessment for every financial institution. Management involving financial institution, especially in the management of the credit assessment profession. Employees who do work in the field of credit assessment need to have transparency in duty by having a true knowledge of customer and associated credit risk. Lacking these two, the first one is risk metric. Risk metric is a metric used in risk assessment to determine a client's level of risk by considering each category like likelihood against the severity. This is a simple mechanism to increase risk visibility and aid management decision making. Second, decision tree analysis. Decision tree is one of the risk tools that are rarely used today but are still useful in assessing credit risk. This method is like a picture of a tree start from the base or any action. It's like predicting some probability based on some factual evidence. Third, failure mode and effect analysis. This method is a way to find out any possibility of failure. For example, errors in processing and assessment that could potentially cause an impact to the customer, whereas impact analysis means studying the impact of the failure. Some reporting. This method is a bad way because it does not follow the procedure because it's really complicated and it's presented in a form that not understood, unclear, and intuitive. As a result, irrelevant data occurs that increasingly burden analysts and IT in obtaining accurate and relevant information or data.
We move to the next point, which is limited group-wide risk. Limited group-wide risk will affect the quality of risk check. It also requires good thinking in understanding the key risks. It also can be occurred with proper procedures and management. The next point is neoliberalism ideology. Free market is the most critical precondition for individual liberty. Government's role should be limited to safeguarding this market freedom. And the last point for moral and ethical issues in credit assessment profession is the lack of transparency. The lack of transparency is particularly dangerous. It better informed party could take disadvantage due to think. And the last one is the lack of transparency means like manipulate price, consistency, and quality.
The conclusion we get as a result of this given assignment is to understand the moral and ethical issues and problems in the credit assessment profession. For your information, a credit rating is a credit agency's assessment of a company's capacity and willingness to fulfill its financial obligations. Regarding this credit risk, there are many ethical and moral errors or shortcomings of market parties in the financial sector, such as unrealistic and risky mortgage lending to the poor. Therefore, good moral and ethical values are very significant to be inculcated in the credit assessment profession by removing a sense of public responsibility and mandate additional professionalization of those working in the financial sector. This will involve strict adherence to code ethics, competency testing, and other measures, some of which are being or already being taken. Besides that, the issues of morality and ethics in the credit assessment profession is to realize the concept of efficient and effective credit risk management in the concept of credit risk management implemented by credit agencies for financial institutions and banks. In conclusion, this assignment has shown the importance of moral and ethical principles in the credit assessment profession because it has a positive impact on the development and progress of business transactions conducted by banks and financial institutions in addition to daily life in activities. Whatever the reason and causes for the crisis that has occurred, the main cause of the economic crisis actually goes back to the moral and ethical failure